Good morning, everybody. Today's date is May 1st, 2023. Welcome to the class Buddhism 305, Buddhism in East Asia. I hope everyone is doing okay. And today is our fifth session, fifth week. And before I forget, let me tell you that next week, we will be having the midterm exam. Next week, a week from now, okay? Not today. Today, we are going to talk about, in fact, in the syllabus, you find today's assigned topic is Buddhism in China. But I thought I made a little addition. Next, after the midterm, we will talk about Buddhism in China. But before that, I want to spend some time with you in understanding what type of Buddhism reached China and the other countries, East Asia. The Buddhism that transmitted to those countries, to East Asia, you may know by now, it's called Mahayana Buddhism. So we have to be really, we have to understand what it is, Mahayana Buddhism, and where does it come from? What type of beliefs, what type of innovations that you find in Mahayana Buddhism that you do not find in early Buddhism. Early Buddhism in the sense that we were talking about the earliest period in the Tripitaka and other non-sectarian Buddhism. So we have to be a little clear about these things. So first thing that I want to say you is that in the Buddhist history, we saw this thing when we were talking about the second Buddhist council, that is like after like 100 years, 150 years after the passing of the Buddha, when the second Buddhist council was held, after the second Buddhist council, there occurred a what you may call a schism. Schism, maybe you are not familiar with the word. Check the dictionary. Schism, S-C-H-I-S-M, schism or schism. There was a division, schism, into sects. To that point, the monks or Mahasangha is understood as, taken as one group. But after the second council, this whole body broke into sects, different schools. So that's the better word, schools, sects or schools. So very first group that broke away is called Mahasangika. Maha means big, great. That means if you take a head count, that is the bigger group. Maha Sangika means congregation or the assembly of monks. So a great assembly of monks, Maha Sangika, one group. They coined the name for themselves as Maha Sangika. And the other group that broke away is called Stavira, or elders. Elders in the sense that they got that name because they were following the earliest teachings in the precise way as it is given by the Buddha. So that's why they were called elders. So the way of the elders. Later it became as Theravada. In modern day, you find Theravada as a big school, and Mahayana, as opposed to Theravada, there is Mahayana. So what we are interested in here, in knowing what this Mahayana, the new school, the new tradition that became so popular in East Asia, because our focus in this class is to learn, to study Buddhism in East Asia. So Buddhism in India itself, the very same place that it arose and developed over like 3-4 centuries, at that very same place, the new tradition called Mahayana came into existence. So the very first question that you might now ask is, when did that happen? Can you give an answer for that thing? Basically, don't believe that, don't think that Mahayana as a school of Buddhism arose in such and such a date. You cannot give a date like that. Last night, Mahayana came into existence, somebody say. Last year, Mahayana came into... No, that's not, that way is impossible to figure this out. You roughly, scholars and historians, they say that around the beginning of the Common Era, around that time, roughly around that time, Mahayana came into existence. It doesn't mean that Mahayana abruptly, all of a sudden came into being. No, the ideas were there and they developed. That's how things happen. It evolved little by little, and then you see a big, just like a tree, just like a little seed coming into as a plant, and petal by petal, and then grow into a big tree. Just like that, during that time, with the turn of the century, around the turn of the century, that time, this new tradition formed itself in India. And the name, very important thing. They call themselves, when they came out of the other schools, they came to be known as Mahayana. Maha means greater, big. Yana means vehicle. Maybe you have learned this in one of your previous classes. So greater vehicle. If you want to translate the term Mahayana into English, it means greater vehicle. Why is it called greater vehicle, big vehicle? There's a meaning behind that. Because they, Mahayanists, they call themselves that they are in the bigger vehicle or the greater vehicle, in order to, market themselves. They saw the other groups as they are in the lesser vehicle, small vehicle. Hinayana. Hina means lower, less. When somebody says, I am great, you are not great, you are small, or you are less, that means you are kind of degrading. So the Mahayanists, what they, at the very inception, they came out as, degrading other schools. Other schools, oh, you guys are only lesser vehicle. We are the big vehicle. The meaning is, lesser vehicle means, Hinayana means, you are following only, you have like 3 doors of deliverance, or these words might be difficult for you. You have three options. Three options in the sense, in order to get rid of this samsara, in order to be free from suffering, you can either become a Buddha and do so. If in order to get rid of the samsara or get rid of suffering, you can aspire, or you can be a Buddha, attain enlightenment, and be a Buddha and be free from suffering. If not, if you cannot be a Buddha, then there is another option. The other option is that you can become a Pacceka Buddha. Pacceka means partial. Only partial. Partial means not like the Samma Sambuddha or the big Buddha. You are partially enlightened. Partially enlightened, and then you can be free from suffering. And the third option, if not, if you miss those two options, the third and the last one is you can become an Arahant. Arahant means enlightened person. You can become an enlightened person and be away from suffering. So there are three options for these lesser vehicle people. The lesser vehicle followers, they had these three options, either becoming a Buddha, Samma Sambuddha, or Pacceka Buddha and Arahant. In early Buddhist teachings, you find these options. So that's why they were following that tradition. Whereas in Mahayana Buddhism, the new school that came into being, as I told you, around the 1st century CE, or even 1st century BCE, during the turn of the century, they came along and said, oh, there is only one way, no three options. You have to be a Buddha. You have to be a Samma Sambuddha, to be away from suffering or to be free from samsara. You have to be a Samma Sambuddha. The other two options are not valid. Especially Arahant. They said Arahant, Arahant is not a fully enlightened person. So how come you say you are aspiring, you are in a bigger or greater vehicle, you are in a lesser vehicle. So let's aspire for the bigger one, greater one, higher one. That's why, so we are following that path, and then we are called Mahayana. And those people who are not following that path, they are called Hinayana. So Hinayana is not a name given by the respective schools. It's we call it pejorative name, a name, degrading a group of people. So pejorative sense. Whereas Mahayana, they recognize themselves as higher than all the other schools. So that's how this word came into being, came into existence. And of course, today, today you find these two traditions, two not just true, and there's another one, Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. The third school, Vajrayana. We are not paying much attention to Vajrayana in here, but there's that school too. You may know in Mongolia, Tibet, those countries, and even in these Chinese and East Asian countries, some of practitioners are, some of the practitioners are Vajrayana, another school, okay? But the main two schools are Theravada and Mahayana. And out of these two schools, Mahayana is more popular in the sense, large area of geographical area, you find this tradition being practiced in China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam. A lot of countries, they are following this tradition. And Theravada is, if you comparatively, lesser number of people. That's not the idea as Hinayana, but nowadays that's how it is. So we need to understand why this tradition came into so popular, came into being, and how it came so popular. So in India at that time, there was what you call an animosity against the individual salvation. Individual salvation means Theravada Buddhism or Hinayana followers, they were focusing on individual salvation, individual salvation for myself first. And then only you can help others to become enlightened or become free from suffering. Which is also a good idea. But Mahayanists say, no, no, no. It's not good idea because if you work diligently seeking your own salvation, your altruism, your thoughts are not good, you are limited. We as Mahayanists, we believe that one should not strive alone to be a Buddha or to be free from suffering. We all should put concerted effort. If I will be a bodhisattva, see, new concept came into being. I will be a bodhisattva, one who is working for salvation, not just my salvation, salvation for everybody, freedom from suffering for everybody. I postpone my individual salvation, my individual liberation, my individual attainment of enlightenment, I postpone until I help all other beings to be saved. Understand? So I mean Bodhisattva. That Bodhisattva means one who postpones one's own salvation, one's own liberation, one's own capacity to be free from suffering for the sake of others. Very, very beautiful, very nice idea. Why should I be free? I cannot be free alone when there are millions and billions of other beings are in suffering. How can I work individually for my own personal salvation, which is very beautiful idea. And that's why that idea became so popular. And on the other hand, Theravada philosophy or the Hinayana philosophy was like this. I have to be free before I help others. Before I help others to be free, I have to be free first. This is also a kind of beautiful idea. Say when you fly, when you take a flight, you must have heard the air hostess and all those people. They say, you wear your seat belt, you wear your mask, oxygen mask, before you help others to wear the oxygen mask in an emergency. Have you heard that thing? In every flight you get into, one day might be 3-4 flights, the same thing you will hear. Before you help others, you have to wear the, the oxygen mask first. So first you have to do it, and then you help others. In that sense, these air hostesses are Theravada. That ideology, that belief is there. I'm just, you don't talk about, when you are talking about Buddhism, you are not going to talk about these air hostess and others. I'm just giving you a example. But in early Buddhism, you find this example. This you find in in early Buddhist texts. What is that? The Buddha says in one of the discourses, when you are submerged in mud, mud, debris or mud, when you are submerged in mud, how can you help somebody who is also in the same state? When you are submerged in mud, how are you going to help another person who is also in the same mud submerged? First, you have to make an attempt. You have to strive, work hard to get out of the mud. And then you can help the other person to be free from suffering. You are drowning in the sea. Another person is also drowning in the sea. And you are going to help the other person. So at that time, you might get drowned and you cannot be free. So that type of idea. So you will be able to see, compare these two ideas, these ideologies, Theravada and Mahayana. So one group followed individual salvation. You have to be free from suffering in order to help others. The other said, how can you do so? When everybody, billions of other people are in suffering, how dare you make your mind to be free? So these two ideas, I'm a Theravada monk, but still I can see the beauty of these two ideas. So that's why during that time, during the turn of the century, that means like 2000 years ago, this new trend or the new school, if you want to say, came into being, and that is recognized as Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana. So that school. So when Buddhism reached China, the transmission occurred during that time, 2nd century, 1st century or 2nd century CE, Common Era. That's like around 2000 years ago. So Buddhism went to China in the from Western India. In the Western India, these type of teachings were very popular at that time. That geographical setting was very popular with these type of ideas and followers. So especially the merchants, they went on trade on the Silk Route, the ground Silk Route, and they carried these teachings to the other lands, right? So next week, not next week, I mean after the midterm, we will be talking about that thing, how Buddhism reached China and how it evolved over there. But before that, this is the fundamental thing that you have to understand, that there were two different schools in India itself, Theravada and Mahayana, and the Buddhism that reached East Asia is not Theravada, but it is Mahayana. And why these division occurred based on the basic teachings? No. Basic teachings, we saw in one of our earlier classes, that Four Noble Truths and dependent origination and 3 characteristics of existence, all these teachings are the same. Then what happened? Minor changes in they needed minor changes in their Vinaya rules. Vinaya rules means disciplinary rules. That's why this division occurred. But still, the beautiful thing is, even in Mahayana countries, the Vinaya, the disciplinary rules, they are evolved from one of the Hinayana schools. One of the Theravada schools, Dhammaguptaka, the particular school name, that Vinaya, because the texts that they carried from India, from Western India, because these things went into China through text, because merchants took certain texts books. And in those books, you find the Vinaya rules or whatever, the disciplinary methods that the Buddhist monks were using. So the point that I am trying to make here is fundamentally between these two traditions, between these two schools, philosophical differences are very, very minor differences. And Vinaya, disciplinary differences are a little bit more. And the way they interpreted the teachings of the Buddha, a little bit different. The interpretation was different, but the basic structure, basic teachings are the same in these two traditions. So, so you have to understand now that Buddhism reached to China. Buddhism that became popular in China is not Theravada Buddhism, but it's Mahayana Buddhism. And that Mahayana Buddhism arose in India during the time of the turn of the century, Common Era, around that time. And again, in India, this tradition, Mahayana, became so popular and philosophical tradition. You may know that Mahayana Buddhism talks about very high priority is given to the idea that what you may call emptiness. They talk about emptiness. What emptiness means, that nothing exists alone. Everything depends on everything else. We exist, we coexist. I cannot exist in this world without the help of many other things. All those things help me as a person to survive, to exist. Many other conditions exist. So we are interdependent. See, the beautiful idea. And they go that far to say that the air that I breathe out is the air that you breathe in. To that extent, we are interconnected. See how beautiful. We do not pay attention to. If you smoke, especially be careful. So the air that I breathe out is the air that you breathe in. That type of idea, that means that we all are in a net, in a system, connected. If you do something wrong, that creates disharmony in the system. Even though how small you are, you play a vital role in the system. Just like the 5 fingers in my hand. The little finger, however little, however small this finger is, but if you do not have this one, then the whole is missing, right? The completeness is not there. In the same way, we all exist together to make a complete whole. Everybody plays vital roles. So nothing exists alone. So everything is empty of self-nature. That is the idea. We all are empty of self-nature. So emptiness means that nothing exists alone. We are empty. Empty of what? Empty of separate existence. That's how you need to understand. Empty of separate existence. Anything in this world is empty. Why? Empty of separate existence. Nothing exists alone. Everything in a system. See how beautiful these philosophical ideas are. And then that's one of the great things. So in the 2nd century CE, around 2nd century CE, just like after the inception of Mahayana thinking, Mahayana pattern, a very famous scholar monk came into being. His name is Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna is the one who established the school called Madhyamika. Madhyamika is the school that focused on this beautiful idea that everything is empty. Everything is empty of separate existence. When someone says empty, you have to ask the question yourself, empty of what? Empty of what? Empty of separate existence. That school became so popular in India, and also that those the teachings in that Madhyamika school became so popular in the East Asian countries too. That's why I was just mentioning this thing. And the other school that came into being in India, very popular Mahayana school, is Yogachara. Yogachara, the name. First one is Madhyamika, second one is Yogachara. Very highly philosophical school, just like Nagarjuna's school, Madhyamika school. They were focusing on mind only. Everything is mind only. Highly philosophical thing, but I'm not going to teach you the philosophy here, but that also is a very popular school, and that school also, that those teachings helped China and East Asian countries to form their own thinking pattern. So everybody has this nature to be free from suffering, Buddha nature. They call Buddha nature. Buddha nature is in everybody's, within one, everybody. So everybody has the capacity to be the Buddha. Tathagata Garbha, that's how they call it. Womb of Tathagata. Womb of Buddha. That's in everybody's hand. So that idea became popular in China and the other East Asian countries. So the roots are there in India. Indian soil, they created these ideas and then transmitted to China, and from there to other countries. So we have to see the roots of how these schools and other traditions and new developments happened in the China and other countries, but the roots you can find in India itself. So Buddhism that went to China and other countries, East Asian countries, is nothing else but same thing that arose in China, in India. Okay, so it's called Mahayana. And the important thing is there, the Yogachara and Madhyamika, those two traditions are Mahayana schools, very highly philosophical Mahayana schools. Okay, with that, let's wind up and get ready for the what is called the midterm next week. So next week we will be having midterm. Yeah, if you have any question, please feel free to ask me. Okay, have a wonderful week. Thank you.